hi Kathy. A really nice job on this sequence. You can see some really good skills for you and your dog here, so that's great. So good connection starting off here, and blind cross, I think you can have the head turn finished already. But good here that you can see you're already connected as she's jumping here. I think you can just, like I said, just turn your head on the span of one step forward, if that makes sense. Because if we take longer than that, and we start to slowly turn your head as you're moving forward, the connection then is delayed. And so really we want to make that blind cross turn done pretty quickly. Now for this threadle wrap, for this flick, it's important that we set the approach line before the dog jumps for this jump, right? So here we need to cue a turn. And you can see that that your dog was thinking about going to the wrong side of that jump, and that's what happens if we don't decelerate before they take off for this jump. So you have to make a rhythm change, or you can reverse spin. Either of those will cue a turn. But we want to also make sure we're thinking about the dog's lines on the course and how you're moving, because here I feel that you're trying to like a bit make a curve there, but the dog sees the course in straight lines from landing to take off if we're talking about jumps. So I would want you to stay parallel to this line and make sure that your dog sees a change in your motion pretty much now, right? So you do see what I mean? Like you're sort of pulling off already, but you didn't change your motion enough to cue a turn. And so even though you're curving, it doesn't cue a turn as much as a rhythm change does. And you don't have to hurry to go anywhere because your dog can do this flick really independently, but I would want you to get her to land already on this line. And that's all about making deceleration before she passes you, so a rhythm change, enough that she collects and turns. Or you can reverse spin to get that as well. And flick you can do with opposite hand or dog side hand, either way. Oh, you did the in, never mind. That's fine. I think you did the wrap in a future repetition, and I'm thinking of that one, but that's okay. Either way, we need the dog to land on that approach line much more there. So some stronger turning cues, and then here connected and with one step sending to that, really good. So just this one, I think you can probably just turn your elements more towards the takeoff of this jump rather than forward, right? Because then the dog really has to think about, okay, what am I supposed to do? Now there's no obstacle there, but it's just a fence. But if there was an obstacle there and your toes and chest laser are pointed in that direction, so if you see here that toes and chest laser pointed there and there was a jump here, likely your dog goes to that jump instead of this one. So make sure that you're connected, and if you're stepping, you're still stepping towards the takeoff to commit to that one with a threadle slice cue as well. All right, and then here too, more deceleration. So when the dog is in the tunnel and you're ahead, look at the tunnel exit, or ideally even look inside the tunnel, because then you have connection immediately when the dog is coming out, and they're always going to look for connection when they come out of a tunnel. So if we have it prepared for them, that by the time they can see us, we're already connected. We're already telling them go forward, as well as your motion is doing that because you're moving forward before the dog goes in the tunnel, right? So they're saying all that. So then we get the dog on this line right away, no problem. So the next objective is to tell that there's a turn coming. And again, here you have to do it before she reaches the takeoff, and ideally before she passes you. And I think it's likely that your dog is already committed to that jump, so you can make those turning cues now. So do your rhythm change. So rather than turning, so do you see what I mean? Like that, like curving line that you're running, run forward on a straight line, make a little rhythm change so that your dog will shorten her stride and collect, so that every time you slow down or stop, your dog will want to turn. And so that's how we're telling that turning. And so you would do it probably from here and then stay on the parallel line from there to get your dog going here. And I think you'll just get better turning on this jump. So it went perfectly well. It's just a little bit long, and I think probably you get a tighter line there with some more turning cues. And you're still going to be likely even more ahead, because if you run a curve, that's more yardage. If you run a straight line, you're going to end up getting more ahead because you have to cover less distance than you would on a curving line. So really try to avoid running curves. So dogs see the course as straight lines. And so if we run a straight parallel line as well, it's much more efficient and we get correct obstacles more often and better lines more often. Really nice independent flick there. That's super. Good job. Yay, good. A little bit, maybe still stronger turning cues on that one. And also because here we're doing this front cross, we have to be prepared that pretty much on landing of this jump, you're seeing her commit, which I think has happened already. You can see commitment if you're looking for either looking at the dog's eyes and seeing that the dog is looking at the obstacle, or even if you're not looking directly at their eyes, you can see that they're engaged with the jump when their body is in a straight line and they're driving towards it, and you can see that there. So front cross should be finished now, right? You see it, like the dog's not looking at you, she's looking at the jump. So she has said, I'm going there. So now you have to tell her, well, on landing, that I want you to land in collection and make this tight turn. And so by doing the front cross before takeoff, we tell that. And here in this position, I would also have you handle the takeoff point. So by that, I mean point your toes and chest laser to the place where she would take off from in extension, which is here, for a dog your size and speed. So toes and chest laser should point there. If your toes and chest laser are pointed forward, that direction, the dog is going to want to go longer. Even if you do the front cross on time, you're still going to get a wider turn because that's just how they're going to read the handling and it's what line it will create. So if you turn chest and toes to that takeoff point, as you're doing the front cross, you're going to already be giving slowdown cues, which means that you're going to get better turning, right? So you see how she went much wider there. So, and you can see that the front cross was finished on landing. We really want it to be finished before takeoff. And it's easier to do it when you handle the takeoff point. Good, nice layering to the tunnel. Okay, and then we want to make sure we're telling this flick a little bit sooner because you can see here she has a question. So I don't know if you have a verbal for flick. If you don't, consider adding one to the handling. So never absent of the handling. They always go together. But if they understand, for example, like a verbal that says, do this, turn away from you, you can start saying it while the dog is in the tunnel. So they'll start to think of that already. And then she comes out and sees the handling that goes with it and is like, okay, I know exactly where I need to go. But first you can see she's thinking, go straight to the jump, and then changes there. But we would want that she is coming out of the tunnel already on the line to the flick as well, right? So that means if the line goes straight to that jump, I actually have to, let me check the map. Okay, so here's the map, and you can actually see that on the map, the natural line pretty much does go to the flick line. But sometimes we build things a little bit differently. And so if she comes, and it looks like it is, that if she's entering that tunnel and the tunnel is pointing at the front side of that jump, then you have to make sure you change the line before she goes in the tunnel. So she should see you running already parallel to the line needed for the threadle wrap. And actually this positioning of this jump will already cause that, but you should already be moving that way so that she's planning to turn a bit coming out of the tunnel. And then as soon as she comes out of the tunnel, the opposite hand flick handling, yes, should be there. Make sure she can really see it. Good. Yes, super. So I think just make sure you're maybe considering adding a verbal to that one, changing the line, and then like as soon as you can see her in the tunnel, you're already handling the flick there. And then I think you can work a bit on, because she wanted to come towards you, maybe start to pre-place a reward there so that you work a bit more on that distance skill from that far away, because I do think you can do it with this layer. But even if not, and you're going in, keep the forward motion until you see her commit. I went back too far. Yeah, so it's just a little bit late turning the nose. And some of that is that if they can't really see your hand, because we often now advise to add opposite hand for flick, that if they can't see that hand, then they'll question. So do make sure that she can easily see it. as well. Maybe keep it a little bit lower. Connect here, so you should see her jumping. This one over your right shoulder already. All right, just a little bit looking forward, and then again we have to turn to give turning cues on this number 3 jump. All right, so make sure you're looking at her, and now look for commitment and then stop moving. Because if you're still moving, you're telling the dog go long. So slow down, come to a stop, so that she doesn't think to continue on the line to the wrong side of the jump, because that's what the dog is assessing, right? As they're coming to the takeoffs, they land this one, there's like a stride, and then they're about to jump. They're checking your handling to see what to do. And so during that time, if she sees that you're going forward, then she will also think, okay, my next line is forward, and then that leads to the backside. So if you want her to turn, you have to decelerate to cue the turn, and then be moving parallel to the next intended line, which is that way, right? So you have to change the direction of your motion to change the line, so that she doesn't think go to the backside. And here to decelerate, so you cue more turning. Run a straight line rather than a curve. You just see how far away she goes because that forward motion was there. So decelerate so she turns, and then run your parallel line from landing of that jump to take off of this one, but you can do it from probably here. And as long as you're connected and your chest laser is pointing to that line, to the dog's line, then you will still get the correct jumps. And then you won't have to pull her in here either, because then you just come here and decelerate, make a rhythm change again to cue the turn. All right, so it's not pull the dog towards you with opposite hand. It's saying there's a turn here, land this jump facing the next correct line. So I'm going to work on handling that turn. And then when you handle the turn, then the opposite hand comes in. So when the dog lands on the correct line, opposite hand comes in to say turn away with flick. Front cross before takeoff, and tell already, flick. Good. Right, because coming out of the tunnel, we still have to set the line, but you're doing that before she jumps. And even with that, if you have the flick verbal to support the handling, say it before the dog goes in the tunnel. And I still generally advise that handlers set the approach line first, see the dog is on that line, then introduce the flick hand to turn the nose. Maybe we need to do it a little sooner coming out of the tunnel, because you can see she's coming out with a question. And by that I mean that she's coming out of the tunnel looking at you. But on this one, we want the dog to collect and turn so so she's on that line already. And so it's proactively cueing the turn before takeoff to this jump, not pulling on a curve on landing. All right, but the skills are there. It's quite good. So just a matter of some small adjustments. So yes, with this blind cross too, the connection is there really nicely when you're starting it. It should be done now. So I think more that you're going to see the dog land, see them commit, and have the head turn done already. Yep, so that you're seeing them jump. And still here too, your head is still in enough of a neutral position where I would want you to be watching the dog's line so that you can see the dog out of the corner of your eye here, so that you still have connection. And then because here too we have to see, yes, commitment, and then stop moving so that you cue a turn, not continuing forward on a curve, although it's a bit of a better line. Still really want to practice proactively cueing turns so the dog ends up on the correct line already. Good, nice throttle wrap. And here too, decelerate, so we cue turn. Make a rhythm change there so the dog is prepared to turn. Yes, and then yes, you have to here too cue your turn with deceleration. And that needs to be like, yes, this is too late to stop moving. It had to have been done already. But some of that would get saved if you get better turning on this jump after the tunnel, because the more extension, the more speed. Or if you get collection there, then the dog stays in relative collection approaching this next jump and is then already going to be more prepared to turn. But here, where he's jumping is already facing that one. So we had to make that turning cue, those turning cues sooner and more clear, so that you first set that approach line. And I would recommend that when you're setting the approach line for a flick, that you keep your chest and your toes pointed forward. All right, because I do want the dog to come in here and go with speed. All right, but if so, to show that, point your toes and chest that way, but yours are pointed at this line, and they will typically go where your handling elements are pointed. And so there it does say, go to that jump, and then it's too late. So you have to change the line on the jump before the flick, make sure you are positioned and moving parallel to the intended line, with your chest pointed forward, right? If this is the intended line-ish, it's always hard to draw, but toes and chest parallel to that. And when you see the dogs on that line, you introduce the opposite hand for the flick. Proactive front cross, so before takeoff rather than on landing. Yeah, really nice. Really nice. I think you're just like, the things that I'm telling you are adjustments that are going to help you to save time by getting tighter lines in most places, and or really make sure that you're not getting an off course like we did the first time. I didn't go back far enough. Yes, but do you see here, there's just a small difference in where your chest is pointing than it was before, but you're also a bit pulling by turning your chest as your dog is landing, instead of having already before he even takes off, having that prepared. But that's much better position for the flick. And then turn now, front cross. Super. It's really good. Yeah, better front cross. Good. Turn, see your dog. Yeah, good. That's a really good either or to do also, because we always want to make sure that they're following the handling and that we're able to, yeah, really cool. That you're able to do the different lines. So there too, I still want that information given to the dog sooner. Now you're a bit behind, which is okay, but your dog comes out looking for you, which is also okay, because we're going to get the correct line there. But your hand being here, try to reach a little farther across your body so that your dog can see it more easily and earlier. And keep it low, because if you lift it, they tend to look up at it, rather than being able to keep their eyes focused on going forward. All right, and then if they look up, they either don't make the lead leg change and they don't turn away from us, or they turn wide or late. So keep the hand low and as obvious as possible to the dog. Super job, really good. And that last day training where you change things up, also really good and important to do, that either or training, so that we can be sure that the dog is following our handling, and that we can also handle all the different lines that are available to us. So that's great. So let me know if you have any questions on anything I mentioned in here, and hopefully I'll see you in another video soon.